spent 19 years as National Sales Director at Unicharm Gulf Hygienic Industries in Saudi Arabia. Mr. Bassil Zeidan.
When trust breaks in these categories, the consequences are not proportional. They are exponential.
What is the single biggest shift you have seen in how Gulf consumers buy? And what has it done to how you sell?
I think the single biggest shift is the consumer took control.
Hello everyone and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders powered by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I'm your host Sunny Pancholi. Every single day, millions of parents reach for a diaper, millions of women reach for a hygiene product, and millions of elderly patients depend on care products. Somebody has to make sure those products are on the shelf at the right price, in the right store, at the right time. Today's guest is that somebody for one of the Gulf's largest consumer goods companies. Mr. Bassil Zeidan has spent 19 years as National Sales Director at Unicharm Gulf Hygienic Industries in Saudi Arabia, leading sales across baby care, feminine care, adult care, and wet wipes across one of the region's most competitive consumer markets. In 1 year alone, he grew sales volume by 30% and market share by 15%. He holds a master's in chemical engineering and business administration and a doctoral degree in management and organizational leadership from University of Phoenix. Please welcome Mr. Bassil. Mr. Bassil, so great to have you with us today.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sani. That's so wonderful and warm introduction. And what a privilege to be here on FaceTime with Leaders. Directors Institute has always represented that kind of serious, purposeful thinking that I deeply respect. And being part of this conversation today means a great deal to me. I'll try to be as honest and as practical as possible, because after 19 years in this field, I found that the most useful insights are rarely polished ones. And they are the ones that come from real pressure, real relationships, and real decisions. So let's go into it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to a great conversation ahead. So what are we waiting for? Let's dive right in now. Okay, so Mr. Zeidan, most sales leaders move companies every 3 to 5 years. You have been National Sales Director at Unicharm Gulf for 19 years. That is a deliberate choice in an industry where headhunters call constantly. What made you stay? And what does 19 years in the same role in the same market give you that job hopping simply cannot?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, the honest answer is that I was never standing still. So I never felt the need to run somewhere else. Every few years, I had some calls from headhunters asking me or calling me, and I listened, because a leader who doesn't test his market value, I think is not being honest even with him or herself. But each time I came back to the same conclusion: the most valuable thing I had was not transferable. It was here in Unicharm. In consumer goods, our products can be replicated. The pricing can be matched. What cannot be replicated is a distributors. And that's a very important point, actually, is to make a relationship with the distributor to take your call at 9 p.m. or even later during a supply crisis, because he trusts or she trusts you personally. What cannot be matched is a retail buyer who gives you category insights before he gives it to your competitors, because he knows you will use it responsibly. I will give you one example. There is a key retail chain in the kingdom that was spent maybe nearly 4 years cultivating, navigating their internal committees, understanding their categories priorities, aligning the one entire promotional architecture to their business rhythm. By year 5, we were no longer a supplier. We were their category development partner. So we just did this in a full partnership spirit, and that was a great deal to make a like a trust and relationship to go to that level. So I believe having this portfolio dimension adds another layer entirely, and managing baby care, feminine care, adult care, and the wet wipes simultaneously across 19 years builds a commercial instinct that no amount of market hopping can develop, because a market hopper can found everywhere. But whenever you work for a purpose and you make your purpose of life, you can make this embedded in the culture of the organization and make your team to express themselves in a very positive way and to have a meaning for what they are doing. So adding like this touch to your team and to your partners, that is really definitely will make a big change and will make your presence in the organization of value. And I believe this is kind of clear point that made my presence here in Unichar like enjoyable every day, because I do really feel that every day is a new learning to me. I'm calling right now to this conversation. I started my work, I wake up at 4 a.m. and I come to office at 8 a.m. And until now, my time is 6 p.m. right now. And I'm telling you, I feel very much energetic to continue and keep going into this. So, I believe this is something maybe if I don't have the purpose of life, I think it's going to be very much difficult to me to go to that. And, I think one of the challenges I found is maybe building this into your team is very important as a step by step, but you will never stop. Keep doing this because it will be rewarding to you eventually. So I hope that's answering your question.
Absolutely. And what a great start to this conversation, Mr. Zenith. 19 years in one role, one company, one market, and a doctorate on top of it. That is a very deliberate kind of a career. And the relationship depth you are describing, distributors and retailers who have known you for over a decade, is genuinely not replaceable. That is the kind of commercial asset that shows up in results, not on a resume. I repeat, what a great start to this conversation. Great. So let's move further. Let me ask you, Saudi Arabia's retail landscape has changed dramatically over the last decade. Vision 2030 talking about it. The growth of modern trade, e-commerce, international hypermarket chains expanding, and a young population with very different buying habits from the parents. You have been watching and navigating all of that from the inside. Now, what is the single biggest shift you have seen in how Gulf consumers buy? And what has it done to how you sell?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. I think the single biggest shift is the consumer took control. When I started at Unicharm, that was almost 2007, the retail environment in Saudi Arabia was largely traditional trade or family-run stores, long-standing distributor territories, consumer choices shaped primarily by availability and habit. Now, the commercial conversation was relatively straightforward: product placement and price. Today, the same consumer is standing in a hypermarket aisle and comparing the prices, for example, for 3 different apps, while the chatbot answers her or his product question in real time. The entire dynamic has inverted. And now, if you look, now we have in Saudi Arabia the Vision 2030 that accelerated everything, and that was already an inevitable retail evolution. The entry of the international hypermarket chains fundamentally changed the nature of key accounts management. So we needed to upgrade ourselves into that knowledge. And the commercial conversation with the major supermarkets today requires joint business planning. It's not anymore one-sided. And the data-backed category presentations and credible agreement about how your portfolio serves their category P&L. It's not just the brand market share. The days of here's our product and our margin ended years ago. So actually, the point is, how can you upgrade your skills, your knowledge, your team communication with the partners? And we call them partners because we always try to give them similar and more than what we give to ourselves. So I think we were sometimes doing like tracking basket data across a key account and notice a meaningful divergence between in-store and online purchase patterns in feminine care, hygiene, faster and at scale that no industry syndicated data was yet reporting. We had seen it first, and we noticed that with the team complete collaborative comments, because we were watching daily, not quarterly, and we adapted our pack sizes, our in-store navigation, and our digital touch points before the category data confirmed that the trend. By the time competitors were adjusting, we had already captured the repositioning. And that is a key point, how to be at higher speed compared to your competitors. And that is one of the main competitive advantage is the speed of change. And that is one of the things I do believe that if a leader had this from the beginning in his mind or her mind, the whole team will be performing in a very high scale of speed. And this will be reflected as a overall, like I would say, capturing the market, making the plans in the proper way, and definitely being ahead of your time, your competitors, and definitely their activities. So, the growth in a year to year is basically depends on the leader vision, speed, and how to make this or transfer this skill to the team members. And one of the things I learned in my staying here in Unicharm, I had a great team, and my team is marvelous in giving the responsibilities within each member. Each one will do their own, I would say, specified task in a very accurate and very precise way. And the thing is, like how the team is doing this. At the beginning, I needed to interfere into this, but after some time, I am not anymore doing this because I'm going to just to give them the responsibility and make them to do this by them, like by their own experience, because they have a great experience right now. So, one of the things I heard in like from my team members that they are feeling very much proud of their performance and how they see their output is coming even without my interfere, because I just keep watching. I enjoy seeing them, but I definitely keep my eyes to make sure they will keep hitting the way and the right way, and to shift to the positions where we can upscale always our results. So that is the like from my side.
So summing it up, selling to a market that no longer exists. That is such a precise way of describing what happens when organizations rely on last year's insight to make this year's decisions. And in a market moving as fast as Saudi Arabia right now, the gap between last year and this year is genuinely significant. And of course, team building and team efforts are the key decision makers in a fast moving market like Saudi Arabia's. Great. So, moving forward, Unicharm's product portfolio, baby diapers, feminine care, adult diapers, wet wipes, covers some of the most personal and sensitive categories in consumer goods. These are not impulse purchases. Parents choosing a diaper for their newborn, women choosing a feminine care product, families choosing adult incontinence care for an elderly parent. These are decisions driven by trust, not just price. So, how do you build brand trust in categories this personal? And what happens to sales when that trust breaks?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is also, very good question. These are not impulse purchases, and the distinction changes everything from how you train your salespeople to how you structure your distributor or clients agreements. When a mother selects a diaper for her newborn baby, for example, she's not making a commercial decision. She's making a trust decision on behalf of someone who cannot speak for themselves, the babies. And when a family chooses the adult incontinence care for an elderly parent, the emotional weight of that moment is significant. The brands that understand this sell differently. I think that the brand who can understand this and make the best out of this is definitely big different than the brands that do not eventually pay for it. In these categories, brand trust is built in three places. And these are like simultaneously product performance, the retail visibility, and the human relationship chain from manufacturer to distributor to shelf. Our distributor and retailer partnerships were never purely transactional. And that is the key point. If you make it transactional, it definitely will not serve your purposes to upgrade it. And we built this partnerships based on the mutual accountability, which meant that when a product questions arose at retail level, our partners knew they could reach us directly, even by phone, to call me and receive an honest answer within hours, and sometimes much lower, because we are trying to keep a quick feedback to our clients. And that responsiveness built and maintained over years translated into shelf placement, promotional priority, and category advocacy that no advertising budget could have replicated. And sometimes, as we talk now, I had some plan to do some promotional budget, and that is because of the current situation in the region and the challenges available. I just found that we are not able to serve our partners or clients in the way that we hope in order to make more visibility for our products. So I think what I said to our team members, let's be honest with them and tell them we need to collaborate during these tough times and to build this together to make this a strong achievement for both of us during the month of let's say, or quarter two, April, May, June, and make these plans was definitely of value. So effective tomorrow, because usually our like heavy sales is coming at the end of the month, especially in the FMCG. So basically we try to drive this into having our consumers to believe that we can do this together. And if effectively, we did not, at this time, we did not make any kind of cost, and that was only based on relationships. So our initiative that I'm particularly proud of was invested significantly in educating our entire retail-facing team on the human context of each category, not just product-like features and promotional mechanics. A sales representative who genuinely understands why grandmother choosing adult care products for her husband is navigating an emotionally sensitive moment that representative engages differently. The retailers feels it, the consumer sees it in how the shelf it's managed. So we make or reflect the shelf facing based on the emotional messages we make or establish between our product and the consumers. When trust breaks in these categories, the consequences are not proportional. they are exponential. In Saudi Arabia community, word of mouth, both physical and digital, remains the most powerful marketing channel. And our quality incident in baby care does not generate a complaint. It generates a conversation that reaches hundreds of households within 48 to 72 hours in WhatsApp groups, family networks, and all other like social media. So I won't name the brand, but there is a well-documented case in the regional personal care market where a product quality concern in baby wipes, a relatively contained technical issues, cascaded into a category level trust crisis that took the brand nearly 3 years and substantial investment to partially recover from that. The financial statements showed the revenue impact. They did not show the trust deficit. And that's a key point because financial statements usually they are not showing what is behind the numbers. So they did not show that, and they did not show the deficit that had been accumulating from months before it collapsed. The governance message is unambiguous. Brand trust is a balance sheet asset. It builds slowly, it depletes fast, and it almost never appears as a warning signal. You didn't see it as a warning signal in your financial reporting before it manifests as revenue collapse. Boards of personal care companies must insist on trust metrics, consumer sentiments, and complaint escalation patterns. So the distributor's feedback with the same rigor there apply to margin and volume. By the time it shows up in the P&L, you are already behind, and because you did not make the proper action because you just relied on the financial figures. So I hope that's the answer of your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brand trust as a balance sheet asset. That is such an important framing for boards of consumer goods companies. Because the financial statements show you revenue and margin. They do not show you the trust deficit that is quietly accumulating in the background before it actually shows up as a sales collapse. And you only see it after it is already gone. What a reframing. Great. All right. So on those lines, Mr. Bassil, you are pursuing a doctoral degree in organizational leadership, studying how organizations are led, how people follow, how culture shapes performance. You are doing this while leading a national sales team in one of the most competitive consumer markets in the world. Tell me, what has the doctoral research actually changed about how you lead your team day to day? And what has the team taught you that the research never could?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you very much. My doctoral degree gave me a mirror I didn't know I needed, and I say that with genuine humility. There is a concept in organizational leadership around the distinction between managing performance and developing capacity. For most of my career, I was excellent at driving performance. My team delivered, but the doctorate forced me to ask harder questions. Am I building people who can sustain this without me? Or am I creating a dependency on my own presence and judgment? Because I think this is quite a bias. Having such a question will definitely reveal and make or free you from that kind of bias. That question fundamentally changed how I structured the team conversation and how I delegate and how I define the success. I stopped measuring my regional managers solely by their quarterly numbers and started measuring whether their decision making was becoming more independent and more sound over time. Because this is, I think, the KPI that will make them feel more confident and trusted. The question fundamentally changed how I structure team conversation, how I delegate, and how I define success. I stopped measuring my regional managers solely by their quarterly numbers and asked them, clear forward, how much do you feel you are more independent into having this decision or taking the next steps. And that was a great insight for me, at least to understand. One specific leadership mistake I stopped making, I used to intervene too early when a team member was struggling with, for example, a key account situation. I told myself I was being helpful, protecting the relationship, protecting the business. And what the research helped me see that I was actually preventing the learning that only comes from navigating difficulty under the real pressure. Then I started staying present, but silent longer, sitting in the rear seat, but seeing everything, coaching rather than rescuing. And the short-term discomfort was real. The long-term capability development was worth it. What the team taught the research, and that's a good question to ask, what the team taught the research. The case studies are written about things that worked. My team showed me daily everything that almost worked, the distributor relationship that nearly broke over a pricing miscommunication that took 3 months to surface, the sales professional who was technically brilliant but quietly, disengaging because he felt unseen. No textbook covers that, by the way. And seeing this within this 19 years from these moments is its own doctoral program in organizational leadership. One of the things I had, and I want to add to your point, I found that after having my doctoral degree, I wanted to go for senior executive leadership program at Oxford. And Oxford University, I became an Oxford alumni. And having this knowledge, and that was just completed about 5 months ago from now, it was a great learning to make the best understanding of yourself first, because as a leader, if you understand yourself properly, you are going to make a great results reflected to your team, your organization, and definitely your family. So that's from my side for your question. Thank you.
The field teaching, the research, I love that reframing. And because the most honest leadership learnings always comes from the gap between what the theory says should happen and what your team is actually telling you is happening on the ground. And years of that gap is genuinely rich doctoral program in its own right. Great. What an insightful conversation we are having. But let's, pivot a little away from the official conversation that we are having. I welcome you to our quick fire round. No national sales director talks, no doctoral candidate talks, no Gulf consumer goods veteran talks. This has to be very fast and honest. So are you ready for it?
Sure. Yeah, I'm ready to that. Please go ahead.
All right. So the best sales lesson you ever learned, did it come from a win or a lose?
Actually, a loss. You learn more from a customer who leaves that from like 100 who stay. So you learn from that loss, you learn more definitely.
All right. Saudi Arabia's consumer market in 2030, more competitive or more consolidated?
Well, I think both. Consolidated at the top 3 or 4 dominant players, controlling category architecture, fiercely competitive in the middle, where emerging local brands and regional challengers will fight for every point of share.
Great. Next one, a brilliant salesperson who cannot develop others, or an average salesperson who builds great teams. Which do you want leading your region?
I will go for the team builder, because every time individual brilliance is a result, but the team capability is an institution. So definitely team building.
Great. Next one, the most underrated skill in sales leadership. One answer.
Listening, not to respond, but to understand.
Great. One word that 19 years of selling in the Gulf teaches you about what customers really want.
Well, certainty. I believe certainty.
All right. Okay. So that was simple. That was honest. And I think every sales professional in the audience just felt it. Great. Great. Thank you for playing along, Mr. Basil. Now let's move on to the next segment of questions. And let me ask you, 2020 was a remarkable year for consumer goods globally. COVID drove enormous demand spikes in hygiene and baby care categories. Supply chains were under pressure. Retail partners were overwhelmed, and sales teams could not visit customers in person. Companies that had strong distributor relationship and resilient sales governance held their market share. Those that did not lost ground, they have still not fully recovered. What happened inside Unicharm Gulf during that period? And what did it reveal about what really holds a sales organization together when the environment stops cooperating?
Yeah, I think it was 2020 did not test our crisis response. It tested everything we had or had not built in the years before it. And that's a big challenge for all leaders. The demand surge in our categories was almost immediate. Hygiene and baby care became essential purchase priorities overnight. Or maybe at the same time, supply chains were under severe pressure. Retail partners were overwhelmed, and our field teams could not physically visit customers for months. And that was one of the biggest sudden challenges we saw. What held us together was not, I would say, improvisation. It was infrastructure, the distributor relationships built across the years. The retail partnerships where both sides had genuine trust in each other's intentions. And the sales operations discipline we had embedded long before the crisis. The forecasting system, the inventory management protocols, the joint business planning, actually that was also of value. None of that felt heroic when we built it. In 2020, it was the difference. I believe one decision from that period I am proud of, when supply was constrained, we made a deliberate choice to honor our commitments to our longest standing retail partners first, even when it meant declining short-term volume opportunities with the newer channels offering premium placements. That decision cost us maybe some immediate numbers. It earned us a decade of depend loyalty, or maybe I would say more strength loyalty or deepened loyalty from our partners who matter most to our long-term category position. Our lesson from 2020 that permanently changed my thinking is resilience is not a crisis management capability. It is a relationship and process quality that you either have or you don't when the pressure arrives. And the companies that held market share that year did not do anything special with COVID hit. They simply had relationships that were already real, processes that were already disciplined, and teams that were already knew what to do. So I think, the direct message I would deliver to every board of consumer goods company: sales resilience is built in normal times, and that's a key point. The resilience comes with the normal times, not during the tough time, but the distributor relationships, the retail partnerships, the talent depth, the operational discipline, these are not investments you make when disruption arrives. They are the governance foundation you build so that when disruption arrives, it becomes a competitive advantage rather than a crisis. So this is, I think, hopefully will answer your question.
Mr. Bassil rightly said, trust built before the crisis. That is the sales governance insight that every board needs to hear. Because the companies that held their market share in 2020 did not do anything special when COVID hit. They just had relationships that were already real. And the ones that scrambled were the ones who had been treating distributors and retailers transactionally and suddenly needed them to go above and beyond. Great learning. All right. So before we wrap up, let me ask you, you are a valued member of Directors Institute World Council of Directors, Mr. Bassil. From your personal experience, what has been part of the Directors Institute meant to you? And how has that governance and boardroom perspective shaped the way you think about sales leadership?
Yeah, well, it connected the two halves of my personal identity in a way I didn't fully anticipate it. I came to Directors Institute as a commercial leader, someone who had, spent 19 years before, like 8 years total, 27 years building the market share, leading teams, navigating one of the world's most demanding consumer markets. What the Institute gave me was the governance framework to understand how what I do at the commercial level is seen and should be seen from the boardroom. And that is something, honestly, I never saw before. One conversation genuinely shifted something fundamental for me. We were discussing how boards make distribution and market investment decisions and how frequently they do so without real current intelligence from the commercial ground level. I had been that ground level for I had been in that ground level for nearly 2 decades. And I suddenly saw what the real clarity, that gap between commercial reality and board decision making is one of the most consequential and most preventable governance failures in consumer goods companies. So that insight changed how I think about upward reporting. Numbers and are not enough here. The story behind the numbers framed in a language that board can translate into strategic decisions. And that is the commercial leader's governance responsibility. The Institute had also reinforced a belief I had been building through a doctoral program that sales excellence is ultimately a governance discipline. Sustainable, profitable, and long-term results require structured accountability, long-term thinking, and institutional rigor. So those are the governance qualities, not just commercial instincts. And that is something very important for me to know. So for any commercial leader considering the governance education, it will not replace your expertise. What it does, give that expertise its full strategic authority and genuine board level voice. What you bring into a boardroom, 19 years of real market depth, doctoral level leadership thinking, and governance education is a genuinely rare combination. And it is increasingly what boards of Gulf consumer goods companies need inside the room. It's not just reporting to it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Sales excellence as a governance discipline, not just commercial instinct. That is such a mature and important reframe, Mr. Bassil. And what you bring to any boardroom conversation is genuinely rare. Someone who has built market share in one of the world's most competitive consumer markets over 19 years, combined with doctoral level leadership thinking and now genuine governance education. That is a very complete picture.
Thank you very much.
Let me tell you, Mr. Bassil, this has been a genuinely warm and commercially rich conversation. Thank you so much for your warmth, your honesty, and for 19 years of proving that staying in one place, going deep, and doing it right is the most underrated competitive advantage in consumer goods. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sani. I really appreciate your great questions. And I definitely look forward to having another chance to have also more discussion to grow our knowledge together. Thank you very much.
Likewise, thank you once again. To our listeners, whether you lead a sales organization, sit on a board of a consumer goods company, manage a retail or distribution business, or simply want to understand what commercial excellence actually looks like when it is built for the long term, today's message is this. Market share is not won in a quarter. It is built over years, through relationships that run deeper than a contract, through teams that are developed, not just directed, and through a commercial governance discipline that makes resilience a byproduct of how you operate every day. And Mr. Bassil Zeidan has spent 19 years building exactly that in one of the world's most competitive consumer markets. And today, he showed us exactly what it looks like. So we thank you once again, Mr. Zeidan, for joining us.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Sun.
What an exceptional conversation we had today. So this has been FaceTime with Leaders, powered by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors. I'm your host, Sunny Pancholi, signing off for now. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay ahead. Thank you so much.